Hello. I'm Pete Davis, and I'm doing this for Liz Weidecker and for her class. And I'm happy to be doing this, so thank you. I'm in my basement. It's kind of weird to be talking to the computer, but I'm going to just sort of act like that it's a class or something, and I'm just going to talk like a normal person. And so I wanted to talk about my poem Emily Dickinson and the little animation video I made of it, which I did initially for a journal. A couple of different journals do things like video poems. I'm thinking there's a place called the Volta, and there was another one, the Continental Review, and one of those places initially put this poem up, and there are other places as well. So I made the video, and I'd been interested in doing animation. I had done some animation before, never anything very professional. I don't know anything about it, but I had messed around and done some animation before. So, first of all, I suppose the writing of the poem Emily Dickinson, just to give you some idea of where the poem came from and what I was thinking about. Initially, that was a poem that I wrote in one of my classes. I have my creative writing classes do in-class writing assignments, and when they do, I always do the writing with them. And it was a poem that I wrote one day in class, but I lost it. I wrote it and and I liked it, but I forgot about it. I went on with class or whatever. It got lost, and I remembered it later, so I had to sort of recreate it from memory. But it wasn't like recreating it from memory so much as it was just writing a whole new poem with just now having this idea. And the idea, of course, was just the what relatively stupid back and forth between Emily Dickinson and her critics. In this particular case, meaning I suppose just the people from her time period who clearly didn't know, let alone recognize her talents or abilities or anything like that. So the poem ended up in my book Tina, and the whole deal with the poem is simply like when I recreated it, when I rewrote it. The whole deal for me was simply having the rhythm of the language going back and forth of right, talk to the hand, whatever, the flow of that, the way that people address each other in those types of situations, and the rhythm of the poem ultimately is sort of the most important thing about it. And then I guess from another perspective, I think that one of the things about Emily Dickinson is that people might think, oh boy, I wish we had artists around like Emily Dickinson. Well, if Emily Dickinson was around today, if she was alive, she would be nothing like the Emily Dickinson that we imagine when we think of the poet Emily Dickinson, because she would be again ahead of her time. So she would be beyond sort of what we're doing in some ways. She might be incomprehensible to the establishment in the same way that some very slang-heavy rap, for instance, might be to the establishment now. So when we think of who Emily Dickinson is, again, I think some people think, oh, if Emily Dickinson were now, she would be writing these beautiful poems still, and wouldn't that be something? If Emily Dickinson were around now, and no doubt there are some probably Emily Dickinsons out there working right now, I might actually even know a couple great poets who they might be on their way to being Emily Dickinsons. They're not going to be like the Emily Dickinson of the past. So at any rate, for me, that's the idea of the poem, and then the animation. One of the things about doing animation for me, obviously, it's like making videos for rock songs and country songs, and every video director sort of makes a few basic decisions. One, are they gonna try to represent the action that's taking place in the song literally? So if it's about a boy going into the big city in the video, they're actually going to show a boy walking into a big city. Is it going to be like that? Or is it going to be maybe not related to the story of the song at all, and it's just going to be pictures of the band, let's say, walking on the beach in a completely unrelated scene? Or, and here's another thing, it can tell a story, but not the story of the song, but an entirely different story. And obviously, there's combinations of all of those things and lots of middle ground. And again, I know nothing about animation in any sort of formal sense. This is just stuff that I'm thinking about or thought about in my head. So when I was making the video, I had no real interest. I wasn't gonna try to literally portray the confrontation, though that sort of ended up what happening. Um, the way I do these things is I don't think about them very much. So, in this particular case, I cut out the picture of Emily Dickinson and I had it on a piece of paper and I scanned it, and then I said, let's see if we can do a little animation here. So I see if I could move her arms around and legs around just by taking lots of different scans, taking it off, changing the thing, and as I started off to see what I could do with Emily Dickinson's little body there on the page, I had her walk up the wall, and I wasn't intending on doing that, but that's what happened. And the next thing I know, she's on the ceiling, and very quickly it occurs to me that she looks like a bat. And so, and that sort of seemed to make sense to me, which is, I think, the beautiful, fun thing about being a creative person and being an artist is you don't know what you're going to do necessarily, and when you do it, you think, wow, I should have thought of that. That was a great idea to turn her into a bat. Man, I should have thought of that. And it turns out I did think of that. And so there it was. She seemed to be a bat. All I had was like a Sports Illustrated handy, and so you'll notice most all of the pictures of the people at the bottom are sports-related pictures. And she has this little back and forth. I was just watching the video today. I haven't watched it in a while, and if I were redoing it now, I would do it differently. I'm sure I wouldn't even if I tried to do it the same, it would come out different, in the same way that when I rewrote the initial poem, it came out differently. And then the idea of Emily Dickinson being the bat and being like a vampire, or being the undead, something like that, that seemed cool. That seemed like a cool thing. And so I enjoyed having her burst into bats and fly out of the scene. And then you see just the chopped up pieces of her turn around in circles a little bit and move on. I can't remember what I was doing there. I think I was mainly filling space, which is always the case with what you're doing. Which reminds me, you should read the poem. If you have not read, you should read the poem "Why I Am Not a Painter" by Frank O'Hara. And at one point in time, he's talking to a painter, and he says, why is this there? And the painter said, well, something has to be there. And this is the point I think of art, right? To some degree, is that something has to be there, and so let's see. Um, uh, you just make decisions and you go with them. You see where it goes. And again, if I were doing it now, I'm sure it would end up being an entirely different video. Um, it seems like to me that the story of the vampire bat is sort of additional material to the story of the poem. So, in one sense, the story of the poem is, in fact, sort of literally acted out with her hanging upside down and talking to them. But in another sense, there's also just an extra story on top, which is the story of thinking of Emily Dickinson as a type of vampire in our culture, which, again, I think is a fun thing to think about for me. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should um, add to this. Uh, um, I guess for me, when I was looking at the poem again today for the first time, I was surprised by some of what I saw in the sense that, again, nothing ever turns out the way you plan it, and nothing ever appears again the way you remember it. It is always different moving forward, and it is always different looking backward. And man, I hope you guys have a great class, and I hope this has been somewhat helpful and not too long-winded. But again, I was just trying to talk like a normal person would talk to a group of other normal people. And so, thank you, and good luck.